suspended. President Ramaphosa has decided suspension is the correct course of action pending an inquiry. President Ramaphosa informed Advocate Chauke of his decision in writing and indicated that the President and the public will benefit from an independent assessment of issues that require elucidation and on which there are disputes of fact.
Judgment is expected to be delivered in the application by the South African state for clarification on the acquittal of Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omodoso and his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zukiswa Sito today. This after the National Prosecuting Authority sent a request for clarification of factual findings in the judgment after it was found that Omodoso and her co-accused are not guilty on charges of racketeering, human trafficking and rape in April. It was ruled that the state failed to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, claiming that there was not enough evidence provided and poor cross-examination by the state. The head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Ghebreyesus, has demanded that Israel release a member of the agency's staff who he says was seized by Israeli troops during an offensive in central Gaza yesterday. There's been no comment from Israel yet, and BBC's David Bamford reports.
Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said Israeli soldiers endangered aid workers and their families when they entered the staff residence and main warehouse at Deir al-Balah. He said airstrikes had caused a fire and extensive damage. He promised that the WHO would nonetheless continue its work in the area. Deir al-Balah is packed with Palestinians displaced during nearly 2 years of war. Israeli tanks pushed into southern and eastern districts of the city for the first time on Monday. Local medics said tank shells hit houses and mosques.
To recap the top story, the Forum for South Africa has lauded the appointment of Buti Manamela as the country's new Minister of Higher Education and Training. The forum says that it is confident that Manamela will understand the complexity of the department, unlike the former minister, Dr. Ngabane. For any news stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Noluthando Buthelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Hey, it is 9 o'clock Central African time. That means you are going to be moving until midday Central African.
Move it. Why did I?
Oh yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I like to move it. I like to move it.
I knew you
move
wanted
it.
to do that. No, carry
You
on.
like to move it.
Well, we're going to move until midday Central African time. Thank you for joining us on DSTV Channel 802, OpenView 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za. Hey man, it's going to be a good day. We'll be with you until midday, and we've got so many cool conversations. We're going to be starting our show with our In the Cubicle feature, and it's an interesting one because gone are the days when you work for a company your entire life, then sobbed at your retirement party when they presented you with a gold watch.
My dad had also like a watch. It wasn't gold. It was is it beige? No, it was a red watch.
Okay.
A red clock, but a small clock.
Yeah.
A circle one that he got as a long-term service.
Well done
thing.
for your 40 years in service, which is
Yeah.
like a long time giving your life
It
to one
is.
organization,
It is.
right?
It is.
And we're going to be speaking about baby boomers. They did that a lot, gave their lives to one company or two companies, and that was just their life. But, you know, the latest thing is that baby boomers are reinventing themselves, and the gig economy is actually helping them to do so. They're in consulting and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to be finding out a little bit more about what can baby boomers do in terms of reinventing themselves after retirement or even before retirement. We're going to be speaking to Yangeni Chendela, author and HR manager, who is going to be joining us all the way from Zambia. And then we're going to be looking at a very, very cool conversation for our Money Matters feature. July is savings months. We're going to get tips on how to use our money and save it, and but do it through technology. You were talking about an app that you use just yesterday when we were talking about this.
Yeah, there's an app called Stash, and I've been using it for a few years now, and it's actually been quite helpful for me, depending if you want to, save short term or long term. And like with kids, when it's December holidays, they need a lot of money. They want to go out, they want to do activities and all of that. So I would save money for my son on Stash, and you don't actually have to think about it because you sort of plan how you're going to save, and they just take the money. So it's really unconscious, and you don't have to think about it. And by the end of the year, there's a good, bulk amount that I can just give to him and say,
in touch with us on our WhatsApp number, +2763 406 9126. That's where you can text or voice note us, but also you can stay in touch with us via our social media. Hey, social media is always right at the tip of your hand, so become part of the Channel Africa family there. At Channel Africa 1 is the magic handle on all platforms.
Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live 5 days a week.
zochitika ndi madaphiri kamlondola wazochitika pena paliponse.
nduna wazamalonda ku Malawi aletsa kampani yopanga shuga ya Ilovo yomwe ndi nthambi ya Ilovo Sugar Group Limited kuti isiye kutumiza shuga ku maiko akunja. Malingana ndi nduna ya zamalonda Vitumbuko Mumba, izi zithandiza kuti shuga yemwe yakusowa pamsika azipezeka. Ndiye pano ndili ndi George Muhangu amene ali mu mzinda wa Blantyre mu dziko la Malawi. Chimene chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndi chani?
Chomwe chikupangitsa kuti shuga azisowa ndichonena kuti panopo ili ngati off season ya makampani a Ilovo Sugar Malawi, kunena kuti sakutha kupanga shugayi okwanira chifukwa akukolola. Ndiye akamaliza kukolola pameneno atayambeno sopano kugaya shugayi kuti azipezeka. Chinanso ndichonena kuti ma distributors amene akumakagula shuga kaya ndi ku Ilovo kaya ndi kusalima shuga akumagulisa ku maiko akunja ngati Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Mozambique.
zochitika ndi madaphiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
9 to 12 midday Central African Time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
All right, we're going to be starting today's show with our In the Cubicle feature, which is a feature that we usually do to really unpack what's happening in the workplace. But the workplace is not as systematic as we used to know it. It's not as structured as the industrialized era that we were born into. Most of the time, we find ourselves navigating the workplace through technology. If you're not doing that and you're still sending your CV hand to hand to each workplace, you are way behind. We are in the future right now, and that is actually bringing many opportunities for many people. especially the baby boomers, where, back in the day, they used to just get a gold watch to show for their 50 years in service, and off you go with your little pension that's only going to be available to you for 2 years, maybe the most. But you know what? They're actually navigating the situation differently and moving differently right now in the landscape of the gig economy, where even technology is becoming a big, vital part of that. Workers remain abreast of trends to survive. Workers in their 50s are not keen to slow down. And I think it's very unfair to say to someone who's 65 even, to say, hey, your time is up, just let it go. I think people are still vitally important. They've got skills and knowledge systems within them that we need to actually draw from. So yeah, workers in the 50s are saying, we are eager to work, and the gig economy is creating opportunity for the generation of workers to take on new and different roles. We've got Yangeni Chandela on the line, author and HR manager, joining us from Zambia. Yangeni, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Benjamin. How are you?
Where in Zambia are you joining us? I'm good.
I'm joining from the capital city, which is Lusaka.
Ooh,
just
yeah.
right in the CBD.
Nice. You right in the action. You right in the buzz.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about baby boomers. We discount them right now in a generation where we think we are hip and happening in the era of technology and artificial intelligence, and there's new jobs and what people call the new work era. What's your take about the significance of the baby boomers?
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. And maybe just to start off, for those that may not know who are the baby boomers, yeah, because there's been a lot of talk around the Gen X, the millennials. Now we're talking about the Alpha generation.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at the individuals who were born between 1945 and 1961. And if you look at the age group of these people, majority of them are around 61 years, probably even 65. Okay, and because of the way they are positioned, chances that you and I, Benjamin, we can easily discount them, thinking that these are meant for retirement. But now, if you look at the retirement across the globe, due to the inflation, due to a number of changes in the economy, there's been an erosion in terms of the actual benefits that people end up getting after retirement. So now the question is, are we sending the baby boomers into depression? Because once they now go into the so-called retirement, there isn't much of the benefits that they're supposed to do. And then if we just look back, these baby boomers we're talking about, maybe we remove the title baby boomers. These are our parents, by the way.
Yeah, these are our parents. Yeah, you're right. No, some of our parents,
exactly.
some of our parents,
Yes.
because we've got a younger generation that we are parents of.
Exactly. So you realize that the baby boomers are the individuals who have driven some of these organizations that you and I are working for. They are pioneers to major organizations, and they've done so much. Now, because of the changes in the economy, they have been sidelined to some extent, where people think that because they are aging and the workforce needs a younger generation, a more youthful generation, so many are the times that baby boomers are being sidelined. But today, the conversation that we're talking about is we want to give them hope, because remember, these individuals are coming with wealth of knowledge, and they've built this knowledge over time, and the experience and the expertise that they've accumulated remains very relevant in now what we're calling the gig economy.
Yeah, let's talk about that, what we mean also about the gig economy, because some people would be listening to us and like, I'm not sure what you guys are referring to.
Okay. So if you use the shortest way I can define a gig economy is an economy that is characterized by flexibility and individuals doing more of freelance jobs. You're paid by a gig. For instance, you DJs, I know that probably this is not the only job you're doing, okay, if your contract allows you to do more than 3-4 gigs. So the gig economy is where individuals can do more than 2-3 jobs. They will be paid by the gig. So most people, actually, this gig economy has been pushed so much by COVID. Post COVID, people didn't want to go for work. They would rather be home and do a number of things. So now, forgetting that now they've created what we're calling the gig economy. We've got some pros and cons to this gig economy. I'm not sure if you want us to go right into that.
Oh, yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay, sure thing. So you realize that due to the flexibility that the gig economy has, the baby boomers now have an opportunity that they can work as consultants, okay? They can work as project engineers or project managers on particular ones because they do not want to be attached to one organization and start waiting for a retirement. They already passed this ambition of retirement. So the gig economy allows you to do a number of projects and getting paid as you're going. So this to the employer is okay because the employers now will not be paying your pension. They won't be paying your social security issues because they're just paying as it is. And to the individuals, it sounds okay. It sounds funny because now I can work in 3-4 companies as well as I can work like I'm talking to the guys in South Africa. So I can work everywhere. But the downside of it is that you're not saving your pension. You're actually not building a solid future because you're just flexible. And also what the gig economy has done is that it has sort of replaced the permanent jobs and the permanent roles at the expense of these flexible jobs. So you realize that for the younger generation, us who are prone to this, who like these gig economies, in the next 20, 30 years, you will ask, if you're not saving and investing, what did you make of the years that you work? Because you will feel like today I can spend a 20 rand, tomorrow I can spend a 15 rand, it will come, because that's what the gig economy does. But are you saving, are you investing this money? So those are some of the downsides of the gig economy, but it may work well for the baby boomers because remember them, they've already worked the last 20, 30 years, and now they can be available to do the flexible jobs and do projects here and there.
That's so interesting that you put it like that. We're going to go to a break and unpack a little bit more on that. How are they sourcing these gig economies? Are they using the same technologies that we're using? Because one of the misconceptions that many of us have about the baby boomers is the fact that they're not technologically savvy, that they're not in with what we know. But things are changing for this generation. I think they are adapting to serious platforms, some of them, maybe not all of them, and maybe not on the African continent. Maybe we should bring our mothers onto these platforms and say, hey, check out LinkedIn and maybe you can get something there, mom, while you were sitting at work, or dad, you've got so much experience in consultancy work. Hey, why don't you look for something in the UK while you go on an online job platform? Well, we'll speak a little bit about that with our guest, Yangeni Chendela, author and HR manager, joining us from Lusaka, Zambia. What's your take on this one? Do you think the baby boomers are suited for our gig economy? Let us know. +2763 406 9126. That's where you can text us or voice note us right here on The Move.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons à présent dérouler notre tapis rouge pour accueillir notre personnalité du jour, l'artiste chanteur Sheki Frey, qui est en ligne de Guinée avec nous.
Je suis un artiste guinéen, un créateur, un styliste, et je fais un peu ce qui plaît à mes fans. Voilà, c'est un peu ça. On a beaucoup de genres de trucs à faire, mais bon, pour le moment, on est basé un peu sur le rap.
D'accord. À quelle période de votre vie avez-vous commencé à vous intéresser à la musique, Sheki?
Bon, je crois pas qu'il y ait une période, parce que moi, je suis un mélomane depuis mon petit âge.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
We are in the cubicle, and today we're speaking about a generation that we don't speak about often in these day and ages, especially when we speak about the world of work. We speak about the baby boomers, and many times they are discarded and put aside. They're old, and they're left to go and retire and do as they please. However, not only is the economy not allowing enough people to retire comfortably, but also they still are active. They still have a wealth of knowledge and skills that they can use. We're finding out how they can tap into the gig economy. We're chatting to Yangeni Chandela, who's an author and HR manager, joining us from Zambia to continue this conversation. See, one thing about the millennials and the Gen Zs and all the other generations that are coming after us, Yangeni, is that we are using technology to our advantage. But an advantage that these baby boomers have that maybe we're not as savvy in is they know how to build connection. They come from a generation where networking was important, where having relationships with people, interpersonal relationships, was important because they didn't have the internet. How can they use those particular skills to tap into that gig economy?
Okay, thank you so much. That's very interesting. I like it for the fact that we recognize that these individuals are coming from places where they believed in building a normal relationships, not what you and I have with the hi, hello on WhatsApp and LinkedIn. Them, they believe that walk to your office, I come to your home, I'll be there for you. They build solid relationships. But now we're saying that a crucial aspect for successful reinvention for the baby boomers is willingness to embrace new technology. Okay?
Yes.
Because the way that the gig economy functions, it is mainly thriving on technology. And what do we mean technology? If you are on LinkedIn, like Benjamin just put it, you'll be able to spot opportunities. Unfortunately, I'm not on TikTok, but I hear it from my wife, I hear it from the siblings at home. They'll tell you that there are opportunities even on TikTok.
Yeah.
But maybe one thing that we can try to remove here, it's a myth that the baby boomers may not be very tech savvy because surprising, my mother is around 65. Okay, she's in the village. She's been calling me using a WhatsApp video call.
Yeah.
This is very strange. Okay, my father is always updated on what's happening on Facebook. Is using Facebook, and these are the baby boomers we're talking about. So we're saying slowly there's been this technology embracing by the baby boomers because you saw what COVID did. COVID basically allowed churches to be held online. But whether you like it or not, unless you didn't want to go to church, because everything moved to online. So because of this force that came post-COVID, I think even the baby boomers saw an opportunity. So for them to be able to survive in this gig economy, I think embracing of technology becomes critical. And what we mean technology, they don't need to go and do degrees to understand how to use Zoom, for instance, to understand how to use a PowerPoint. These are things that a person who's smart, who's intelligent, who was leading an organization can easily embrace. And the one feature that I like about the baby boomers is that they're detail oriented. So then when they give themselves to learn something, basically they will even learn it better than you and I, because then they're able to question why and how does this machine function as it is. And this is the very reason, yes, please. This is the very reason we've seen that in the consultants world, a lot of baby boomers have gotten a lot of projects because everybody believes in their wealth of knowledge.
That's 100% true. But let's add in there that they might also need a very patient child or grandchild to take them through the process of how these technologies work, which is okay. I mean, let's speak about that. The collaboration that can be intergenerational so that we don't lose the wealth of skills and knowledge that our baby boomers have. How can we work together in an intergenerational way to continue to support them, but also to support our industry so we don't lose that knowledge?
Okay, so I'll give you a practical example. I recently had a project to do some consultants, which I'm yet to do actually. So we're just doing the projects in the background, okay? And people that I'm supposed to train actually, majority of them are Generation X and a bit of baby boomers, the owners of the company, and it's a law firm, okay? And you know the lawyers, they're always this structure. But when I was calling one of my colleagues who's an HR director, one of the big banks, they said they've got a niece who recently studied AI in the law firms, okay? And she's one of the few individuals who understands this. So now, what happened is that she joins a law firm where the senior partners, they don't know how to use this new technology, which is AI in the legal firms.
Yeah.
So now, this millennial or maybe Gen X, Gen Z, okay, now as the knowledge which the baby boomers and the Generation X do not have. Now that right there is an opportunity for what we call reverse mentorship.
Okay.
Okay, reverse mentorship is where a junior is knowledgeable in something that you, the senior, may not know. But that requires a lot of humility because naturally, when you're in a senior position, you seem to be, you're the one who's knowledgeable and you're the one who's in control. But now we have to accept that for baby boomers to thrive in a gig economy, they may need to just step down a bit and be able to learn from it. And it's okay because we all agree that we can learn from any person. And this is what we're now encouraging, what we're calling reverse mentorship, where a junior person is knowledgeable in a field that you, the senior, may not be aware of.
That's so interesting that you say that because I'm wondering, like, after retirement, when do you stop when you have so many opportunities? Let's be honest, the gig economy has so many infinite opportunities there. And I think at some point as a human being, you should rest at some point. So how do you know that you are still equipped enough to keep going? Because the financial thing can become an overriding one to say, I still need to push so I can save a little bit more money before I retire. When would you advise for baby boomers to actually say, okay, now it's time to rest? But I think it's good to have a gig economy that supports them. But what's your take on the rest element?
Okay, I think last week I was in Zimbabwe. We had an HR convention, and this topic came out because Zimbabwe just increased their retirement age from, I think, 65 to about 70. And everybody was not happy with that because what that means is that the younger people that are leaving uni will not have the opportunity to start work because that individual is still holding on to this job. So equally, this is a challenge that I foresee even not only in Zambia, but also, let's just say, Southern Africa, because the more that the older generation continue holding on to these positions, the more that the younger generation will delay to join in this world of work. So for me, the advice is, if I've got somebody who's a baby boomer or even a Gen X and they're complaining that we have too much unemployment around and a lot of youths are not being sent into jobs. The question is, why are you still holding on to those projects and jobs? Because you can't be 65 and 70 and still working, right? And when will that young person be given an opportunity? So for me, I still advocate for the things like 55 and 60 years as a normal retirement age, because imagine if your grandfather or your great-grandfather didn't die, he's still alive today, okay? You have 3, 4, 5 generations still alive. One is 200, the other one is 150, the other one is 100, the other one is 80. I think we will lose track there. I think that's why naturally...
You know what?
We love our great-grandfathers. We wish they were alive.
I wish so. But you know what? I saw what happened to my grandmother, who she was a domestic worker. When she stopped working, I just saw how it sucked the life out of her. And she wasn't ready. But the law was saying, hey, it's time for you to let go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But we have to leave it there. We've unfortunately run out of time. Thank you so much for your time, Yangeni. It's been great to speak to you. And hopefully the baby boomers were listening today and really tapping into those opportunities to be a part of that gig economy. I know one of our favorite listeners is a baby boomer.
I know both two of our favorite listeners are baby boomers. And I was saying to Palesa,
shout out to them and we wish them well. The gig economy is supporting.
I was saying to Palesa that, you know what, I should actually go to LinkedIn and see if I can find a gig job for my mom, just so that she can get stuff done during the day. Because sometimes you can tell there's a little bit of boredom there.
Yeah, well, that's Yangeni Chandela chatting to us about that. He's an author and HR manager joining us from Zambia, speaking to us about how baby boomers can reinvent themselves in the gig economy. That's our In the Cubicle feature. It's 9:31 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning, guys. We begin with football news. South Africa's Western Cape Province member of the Executive Council for Sport, Ricardo Mackenzie, has deviated from his international trip to meet with a stranded group of BT Academy players and coaches in Portugal. Mackenzie is facilitating the safe return of the team, comprising of 25 children between the ages of 13 and 18 and 3 coaches. While there was private funding, the Western Cape government will provide additional funding to fast-track the return journey to South Africa. The Democratic Alliance Party, the DA, has strongly condemned BT Football Academy's owners for their abysmal planning, costly oversight and failure to remedy the distressing situation. And the Confederation of African Football CAF Secretary General Veron Mosenga-Omba expects a record attendance at next month's African Nations Championship CHAN in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. The competition is set for kickoff on the 2nd of August at the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam, where Tanzania face Burkina Faso. Mosengo-Omba says anticipation in the rest of the continent is fever pitch as the countdown to the competition continues. The Secretary General further praised 3 countries for the exemplary preparation for the journey, noting that it is a learning experience for co-hosts of future competitions. The national football team Harambee Stars stepped on the Kasarani turf on the 3rd of August to face the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, cricket news. Proteas batter Corbin Bosch has reiterated the team's aim for more ruthlessness in their approach to their final match of the T20 Tri-Series against New Zealand today. They face the Black Caps for the second time, having lost to the same team last week. Although they collected 2 wins against host Zimbabwe at the Harare Sports Club, Bosch believes they were just not tight enough in their performance at certain stages last week, which ultimately cost them the game by 21 runs.
I think it's something that we pride ourselves to try to be ruthless at all stages of the game, and I think we put our foot off the pedal a little bit in the game, especially in the field. I think we were a little bit lackadaisy towards the back end of that game and just let through some easy runs and maybe a costly drop chance that may have swung the game even more in our favour, where we could have been a bit more ruthless. But I think we have addressed it. I think in the last game, like bat and ball, we were pretty ruthless. So I think we must just do more of the same.
Bosch admitted that the World Test Championship last month has instilled a new sense of belief into the team, which will also give them an extra edge heading into today's game. He says the big win over Australia at Lord's showed that anyone is beatable in any format of the game.
I think there's that. I think it's that quiet belief amongst the players that we can get it done. As you said, the WTC showed that we are a world-class outfit. We can beat anyone in the world, and I think that's slowly starting to filter into all avenues of our cricket. And I think it's an exciting time for cricket in the country. And as I said, there's so much more talent that's left to be explored in our country itself. So it's an exciting time to be a part of SA Cricket at the moment.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Palesa and Benjamin, fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Time now to move on to our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning, I'm Nosipo Zuma in your business news this hour. FlySafair says it had to cancel 26 flights, which account to 13% of its operations, amid the wage strike by pilots, which started yesterday. FlySafair pilots have rejected the airline's 5.7% wage increase offer, sticking to their demand of a 10.5% hike. FlySafair insists that it has been negotiating in good faith under the process led by the CCMA. Chief Marketing Officer at FlySafair, Kirby Gordon.
the reality is that's a 10% increase on basic pay. Pilots' remuneration is quite complex. It's nuanced. There are flight pay things, there are allowances that are considered, there are bonuses, and actually when one looks at the full cost to company increase that they are demanding, it's 20.1%. Now these are individuals who are well paid, they are competitively paid compared to other airlines. They're in the top 1% of earners. A captain will earn between 1.8 and 2.3 million rand a year.
Agriculture experts have urged the South African government to fund small-scale farmers in rural areas for the building of proper structural growth to prevent the movement of animals and slow the spread of foot-and-mouth disease. The country currently has more than 200 cases of foot-and-mouth disease, with the KwaZulu-Natal province being the worst affected. Agriculture expert Wandile Sihlobo says the sector plays a critical role in growing the economy as it is the most inclusive sector. Sihlobo says the root cause of this repeated foot-and-mouth disease outbreaks needs to be urgently looked into.
For small and medium-scale farmers that usually sell their cattle in auctions, selling to certain feedlots, now with the limited movement of animals, as well as just the risk of a disease spread that makes everyone to be extra vigilant, that means then that those markets dry up. And that causes all of these difficulties, which is why I think perhaps as a country, we may have to reach a point where we ask ourselves, is it the time for South Africa to start applying a widespread national vaccination approach when it comes to foot and mouth disease?
Nigeria's economy has expanded by 3.13% year-on-year in the first quarter of 2025. The expansion comes following the rebasing of its gross domestic product, GDP, to better align with the current economic landscape. Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, the country's economy grew to $243.66 billion after rebasing. The NBS says several economic sectors, including marine shipping and ports, arts, culture, tourism and e-commerce, have grown significantly since the last GDP rebasing in 2014, warranting their inclusion. Zimbabwe's exports of spodumene concentrate, a lithium-bearing mineral essential for battery production, has surged 30% in the first half of 2025, despite weak global lithium prices. Now, according to statistics from the Mineral Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe, the country exported 586,197 metric tons of spodumene concentrate between January and June, compared to 451,824 metric tons during the same period last year. Prices of lithium used in batteries to power renewable energy technologies have tumbled nearly 90% over the past 2 years, mainly due to oversupply, but producers remain positive about the metal's long-term prospects amid a global push towards cleaner energy sources and electric vehicles. And finally, oil prices have declined as concerns the brewing trade war between major crude consumers. The US and the European Union will curb fuel demand growth by lowering economic activity, weighed on investor sentiment. Brent crude futures fell 52 US cents to $68.69 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate crude was at $66.69 a barrel, down 51 cents. Both benchmarks settled slightly lower on Monday. Your financial indicators: $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,530 naira, and Botswana is 13 pula 30. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 71. And in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 08. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 579. Russia is 78 rubles 44, India is 86 rupees 14, China at 7 yuan 17, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 68. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. In Kenyan commodities, gold is trading at $3,390 and platinum at $1,447 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.64 a barrel. Now, Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Gender is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache, and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere, no subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. 9 to 12 midday Central African Time. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Spit the drama by.
Well, let me tell you a story, Peter. If you look, in fact, just outside this window, right, so you can see the street next to us. There's a street like coming through, a residential street coming this way. Back in varsity, I went to the University of Johannesburg, the Bunting Road campus on our right, and there's the Kingsway campus on our left. A friend of mine and I went to the library. We couldn't find the book we wanted, so we walked to the Kingsway campus, to that library. Got there, found what we needed, and then walked down through this residential area. And as we were about to reach like a few meters just before the SABC here where we are, we got mugged by two guys, and we got mugged in front of a group of men doing construction in one of those residential houses. They just watched it happen, and everything happened. The guys took our phones and they ran off, got in a car, shoot. We're obviously devastated. They went on to do the work that they wanted to do. So we're speaking about, I'm telling you the story because in the first hour of the show, we're speaking about community involvement in addressing personal crises. And we're finding out the question, have you ever witnessed someone in distress and said nothing? Or you were too scared or nonchalant to intervene? So that's the conversation we're having in the first hour of today's show.
Wow. I mean, it's an interesting one. And sadly, especially gender-based violence.
Yeah.
Everybody sees it, everybody hears it, and for some reason, it's a difficult thing for people to intervene. I'm fascinated to hear about that conversation.
Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps
an international collaboration with the continent. This one is titled African Beauty. And African Beauty is something we're going to be speaking about a little bit later on as we speak about pretty privilege. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But let's go back to this conversation we're talking about today. Baby boomers and work. Yeah, man, I still think when my mother retired, for instance, I literally saw her because she was given the opportunity to keep working a year into her work. And she was still vibrant. And even today, my mom is very vibrant. She's kind of a very active person. So, yeah, I do think especially the fact that people are not ready at that age. Maybe we should consult with them and say, are you ready? And maybe it's even, I think businesses should even screen their employees and say, look, we'll take you to a doctor, make sure that you're okay, and just look through if you can actually keep doing the job at least for a year or two or
and
three.
In the age where work is focusing on mental health, I think it's important to not just look at the mental health of those who are young coming into the workplace, but also the mental health of those who are older. Because if you're forcing people to retire at a particular age, that could be to the detriment of their mental health. Remember that an active brain is also something that keeps one fit and healthy and further moves away diseases and illnesses like Alzheimer's and dementia because you have an active brain. So if you're still able to work, you have the knowledge, of course, and much more knowledge than many of the young people because you also have the experience through it all. So there are ways in which you can be found a place within the workspace, even if it's not to, take a place of perhaps someone younger who could have come into the organization, but to impart your skills in a meaningful way that allows you to also thrive, but also allows the organization to thrive as well.
Yeah. What do you think? We are seeing an extension of retirement ages, as was highlighted by someone that we were speaking to, our guest actually just a few minutes ago. Zimbabwe is extending their retirement age to 70. I think that's brilliant. I think that's fantastic. South Africa is extending it to 67 from next month, you said, off Epale?
Yes, 67 from the 1st of August.
Okay, that's interesting. What do you think is the determining factor of the retirement age? Should we have a retirement age? I'm of the opinion that retirement age or retirement is not necessary. I think you should always consider whatever age a person is, if they're still ready, if they're still vibrant, if they're still fine. I think the age of ageism is over. What's your take? Do you think that retirement is also important for you to rest, to take time off, and to just do other things outside of work? Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +276 346 9126. You can text us or voice note us there.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. No time to waste. Be on the move with Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa. like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now.
Is Angelique Kidjo hang out with Soweto Gospel Choir. This one reminded me of soundtracks in movies or like cartoons. And I thought of one of my favorite ones, P.O. Bryson and Celine Dion. Beauty and the Beast. What's your favorite one? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I know. I have
so
many. There's so many. Maybe Titanic was also
which one? Which song? Celine Dion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that one is a big one.
Yeah.
And I really love like the Lion King soundtrack.
Yeah.
No, I mean.
Have you watched the latest Lion King?
No, not yet.
Okay, I have. I'm a big Lion King fan.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those things that you like. No, I don't want to be old. That's one thing I won't be old on.
For.
That's Avatar and Lion King, right? I'll watch Lion King any day. I'll watch Aladdin, the old Disney Aladdin, any day. Yeah. So I don't know why we're talking about that. It's just the song really reminded me of like
it gives that
these
nostalgic
kind of Disney
feeling,
songs,
right?
you know?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna move into something very interesting in our second hour. I just learned this phrase from Bali now. It's called pretty privilege.
Yes.
What is that, Bali?
So
you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people,
find appealing, that are societally accepted, and those people actually have a step ahead and privileges within society that allow them to be better, to do
like
better.
Models.
Sometimes maybe like models, but even everyday people, right? If you are considered to be societally beautiful or handsome, you have a privilege above those who aren't societally accepted as handsome or beautiful.
Yeah, that's why I need to work on my abs.
No, I think your face is enough.
Just make me blush. But I've noticed this. I've just recently joined Threads, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how to use Threads. I'm always like, when it comes to a new platform, I don't understand how the algorithms work on Threads. But there's one thing that's now showcased on my Threads. There's just pretty women posting how pretty they are on Threads. And you're just like, is there anything else that's on Threads? And I'm always like scrolling for something else. And it's like, you're going to say, Ben, that's your algorithm. You've been searching on Threads for pretty women. No, I promise you, I have not.
This has something to do with you, baby.
No,
because why are pretty women showing up on your algorithm?
Like, there's so many pretty women on my algorithm on Threads. And I'm like, and they've got so many likes and so many shares just for them looking beautiful.
Right. And that's part of pretty privilege, right? Because if you look at the world of social media right now, everybody wants those numbers. They're beneficial in so many ways. But just being able to post a picture of you and your face and your body and being able to rank those numbers is, I guess, a great display of pretty privilege. But it's nice that if you can see it that way, we can think about how it also works in so many different parts of societies. In fact, even within families, there are ways that those who are considered more beautiful would be treated differently in the family structure than those who aren't societally accepted as much more attractive.
Yeah, there's always that pretty auntie, isn't it? The one who has the expensive boyfriend. You know, we know stuff like that happens in our communities. And like, oh, le morning monawa I'll see in Tlaki.
Yes, you know what I mean. And you know, I know it sounds like it's moving towards one direction because it's called pretty, and usually women are called pretty. But pretty privilege is universal. Men and women experience pretty privilege.
I've seen pretty privilege in the gym. You know, I've noticed that kind of a thing in the gym culture where there's always this guy who thinks, you know, there's that room where we're all exercising in, and there's that big mirror. And there's always that pretty guy when you exercising and doing your thing, looking at yourself in that mirror, who's going to stand in front of you because he thinks he's prettier than you.
He's pretty.
Yeah,
so
like I'm going to stand in front and want to look at
mirror.
myself. Like I own this entire mirror. And I'm always like, I'm not that guy. So I slowly just move
away,
on the side, you know, move across. But we're going to speak about that. I don't know what it is. I'm looking forward to find out and how it plays out in our society. Maybe you know, let us know. I would like you to interact with us on our socials at Channel Africa 1 on X mainly. That's where you can find us, and also our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is more simpler. It's called Channel Africa, and that's where you can find us there as well. Let's move on. Thank you to everyone who's been streaming us live, and it's been fantastic to have you there. So thank you for joining us on all those platforms. I know people come in and out, but we don't take that for granted. Well, let's move on into our second hour of the show and get our latest news first to start us off.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories this hour. South African Students' Congress welcomes appointment of new higher education minister, and flags flying half-mast across Bangladesh for a day of mourning. Good morning, I am Nolutando Buthelezi. The South African Students' Congress has welcomed the appointment of Buti Manamela as Higher Education Minister. The appointment of Manamela and Dr. Nomusa Dube-Ncube as his deputy follows the axing of Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane last night. Kabane's axing follows months of controversy over the Sector Education and Training Authority's board appointments that saw several African National Congress-aligned individuals appointed. SASCO National Executive Committee member Bongeka Dlamini says that they have high hopes in Manamela, as he has been the deputy minister in the portfolio for a long time and is the former leader of SASCO.
From him, we expect immediate rectification of NSFAS board, restarting setup process and appoint immediately. Payment of allowances as restarting the research, excluding financial accommodation and academic, specifically of the first year due to outstanding allowances. Also, public process of the Amendment of Higher Education Act, write off the student debt because students are facing exclusions due to debt by NSFAS. The students are not supposed to pay for themselves, but the NSFAS is there to pay for them.
South Africa's Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation, Sello Seitlolo, says that the department can make the budget and technical capacity to upgrade wastewater plants to deal with contaminants of emerging concern, like ARVs now detected in water. This follows a study by Northwest University and the Water Research Commission, which detected ARV residues on wastewater plants, some above recommended safety levels. The ministry maintains the amounts are extremely minimal, measured in nanograms, and cannot transmit HIV or affect the safety and quality of drinking water. Seitlolo has reiterated that the antiretroviral drug traces found in drinking water poses no health risk.
These particular contaminants are increasingly recognized as a concern particularly for water quality, especially in wastewater and reclaimed wastewater for potable reuse. Indeed, as it stands, there isn't any indication that the presence of these ARV residues in drinking water is harmful, although, of course, prolonged exposure to the broader population may lead to some form of antimicrobial resistance.
A judgment in the application by the South African state for clarification on the acquittal of Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omodoso and his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zukiswa Sito is expected today. This after the National Prosecuting Authority sent a request for clarification of factual findings in the judgment after it was found that Omodoso and the co-accused were not guilty on charges of racketeering, human trafficking and rape in April. It was ruled that the state failed to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, claiming that there was not enough evidence provided and poor cross-examination by the state. Flags are flying at half-mast across Bangladesh as a day of mourning is underway for the 27 people killed when a military plane crashed into a school. Special prayers are taking place at mosques. Secondary school exams have been postponed. Over 2 of those who died were children. More than 170 other people were hurt, many of them pupils at the Milestone School and College in Dhaka. To recap the top story, the South African Students' Congress has welcomed the appointment of Buti Manamela as Higher Education Minister, the appointment of Manamela and Dr. Nomusa Dube-Ncube as his deputy follows the axing of Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane last night. For any news stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Nolutando Butelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Time is moving swiftly. It's 6 minutes past 10 Central Africa time, and you're still tuned in to On the Move with me, Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. Ben is in denial.
Yeah.
We're speaking about pretty privilege in this hour of the show.
No pretty privilege.
And you know what? Ben is in denial.
This is the first.
Everyone here in the studio is saying, Ben, you are a pretty boy. And Ben is denying it with everything he has.
Yeah.
But he can't deny it because we are the society, and
Yeah.
pretty privilege is a societal thing.
Okay.
Right now, in this space, we are the society, and we're telling Ben as the society that Ben is a pretty boy, and whether he likes it or not, there probably are ways through his life that he's experienced pretty privilege.
I haven't seen it. Like, honestly, I have not seen it. I have not experienced pretty privilege.
No,
Have you experienced
you
it?
have
You are pretty.
experienced
You are pretty,
pretty
Pali. Have you
privilege.
experienced pretty privilege?
Yes, I will say I've experienced pretty privilege, but because I know about pretty
Okay.
privilege. You have just learned about the word pretty privilege today, and you can't say when you've just learned a term that you've never experienced it.
Number one, I've never associated myself with the word pretty, right? As a guy, it's like, how can I be pretty?
You're so handsome, Benji.
No, even like I've never been told
No,
except by
that
my
is
partners.
a lie.
My partners would tell me, but not-
I think that is a lie. I think
Okay.
that is a lie. And why I say it is
Yeah.
a lie, because I think you know yourself. You, of number one, are a confident guy. And obviously that can come from different places,
Okay.
right? But we are saying that you're pretty. And I'm sure you look in the mirror and you say, yeah, actually, this is nice. No,
not
Benji.
really.
No,
I promise
Benji.
you. I don't think guys think like that.
Guys do think like that.
Okay.
People who look good know they look good.
Okay.
And even if you don't think that you're the most handsome guy in the world or the most beautiful woman in the world, but people who look good will know that they look good. People who have an aesthetically pleasing look know that in some way or the other. And whether you're denying it or not, Benji, I'm pretty sure there's so many ways in your life that you've experienced pretty
I'm
privilege.
looking forward to this conversation because I am hearing this term number one for the first time.
Yes.
And I honestly don't look in the mirror and see a pretty boy. Honestly,
Yeah.
I know what a pretty boy is. I know when I'm sitting with my friends and we're pointing at a pretty boy, how he looks like. He does not look like me.
You are pretty. You are pretty. And today maybe we should do a poll.
No, do not
Let's
do
a poll.
No,
do
that's
you guys
so
think
embarrassing.
Benjamin
Then no
is
one responds to the poll.
We'll do it even if no one responds. We'll do it in the office, and we'll find
that's
out
terrible. Please,
from the
do not-
majority
no.
of people
I
if they
will-
think you are pretty.
I will walk out of studio and I'll leave the premises.
Well, we
of
have
the
your
SABC.
pictures. Don't worry about that. We can still use your pictures, and we can confirm that you are a pretty
Anyway,
boy.
we're gonna find out what this pretty thing is all about. Pretty privilege. What is it all about? We'll be speaking about it in our second hour on that one. What's your take? Do you think people take advantage of how they look, how pretty they are? Do you think they use that as social leverage? Do you think that's a currency in itself? Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +2763 406 9126. You can text us or voice note us there. Looking forward. What's the question that sticks out for you on this one, Bunny?
Goodness. Let's see.
What's the one question you're going to ask on this one?
Well, do you think that people who have pretty privilege are not just willingly, but are intentionally wielding it, right? Because you can be pretty. Pretty privilege is not about you wielding this privilege, but it's about an ingrained societal privilege that you have, whether you use it or not, and whether you're aware of it or not as well.
Yeah, well, we're going to have that conversation. Maybe let us know on that question that Palesa is asking. Do you think people use their prettiness as leverage for moving forward in society, making moves in their communities, in their families, in their workplaces? +2763 406 9126.
Zilipendwa na Abedi Jean de la Croix.
Anaitwa Daniel Etienne Benson. Huyu alizaliwa mwaka 1997, ilikuwa Mei 14, na anajulikana kitaalamu kabisa kwa jina la muziki BNXN. Haya, ni mwanamuziki huyo, ni mwimbaji kutoka nchini Nigeria, mtunzi wa nyimbo na mtayarishaji wa record label. Ameshirikiana na Rema kwenye wimbo huu. Rema vile vile ni msanii kutoka huko nchini Nigeria.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
The situation in northern Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province continues to deteriorate, with fresh reports revealing a sharp rise in child abductions and mass displacements. What needs to be done to address the root causes of the conflict in your view, and especially just considering saying that resources are at the center of all of this.
This has now been going on since the end of 2017 in terms of the armed conflict, but the underlying factors have been in play really for generations now in the Mozambican setting, and the socio-economic drivers which have provided space for exploitation by external forces and by radicalized internal elements are really keeping a pilot light under this conflict. And the Mozambican government has struggled both in terms of its hard security response, but also in terms of its soft security and its development response to address the key drivers in play. And so we are likely to see a continuation of this kind of conflict.
Pierce Piju.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
You know, humans are visual, and there's so many ways in which the way that we see things has an impact in our societies. And from the day that a child or a baby is born, there is an intentional or unintentional sometimes impact or implication on the way they look within society. In fact, from the time a child is born, one of the first things that people will say to them or to their mother is that they look so cute, they are so pretty, oh my goodness. Or sometimes behind the backs of the mother and the father, they'll say, oh, why do they have such dark ears? Why does their hair not look like that? And we impose beauty on each other from the moment that we are born. It makes sense then why beauty is such a huge thing for us in our societies. No matter which community you're in, there are certain pretty or beauty standards that are held within different societies. So beauty may look different in various places you go in the world, but beauty still matters. We're speaking about pretty privilege, a term that Benjamin only learned today, but it refers to the societal advantages and preferential treatment that individuals deemed attractive by societal beauty standards often receive. We find out a little bit more about the cost of pretty privilege on the African continent and how it impacts not just those who are deemed attractive, but how it moves us within our societal realm. To help us unpack this conversation today is Professor Amanda Gous, Professor of Political Science and Chair of the South African Research Initiative in Gender Politics at the Stellenbosch University. Professor Gous, thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners.
Well, Benjamin, my co-host here, is hearing about the term pretty privilege for the first time. And he's like, well, first of all, I've never heard of this word, but also I don't think I'm pretty. We are a micro community here in the studio, so I got to ask at least 5 people who are here with us, do you guys consider Benjamin to be pretty? And everyone was like, yes, he's a pretty guy. He's a pretty handsome guy. And even though he denies it, I say there are so many ways probably in society that he might not have noticed that he has experienced pretty privilege.
Yes, well, indeed. We see that people who are pretty or considered pretty are often treated differently than those who are not. So, you know, it starts already about who is the popular guy at school or the popular girl, and normally that goes together with, you know, a visual idea of beauty. But as you've pointed out, beauty is it has different ways of being expressed in different cultures. But the norm in our society, and I think probably in other societies as well, is a Western norm. It's a slim body, symmetric facial features normally, and very often straight hair. So when you apply that to everyone, it won't fit. And those who are not fitting this norm is very often treated differently with very serious psychological impact on them as human beings. And it very often also leads to what is called body dysmorphia, which is, you know, people looking at their bodies and are being very unhappy with those bodies and very often over-exaggerating certain features that may not even be noticeable. But it especially affects teenagers in that period of when they grow and, you know, adolescence kicks in and so on. So we have to be very careful in how we define beauty and how we, you know, include who we include and who we exclude.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'll exclude myself from this one because honestly, I don't think of myself as ever benefiting from how I look. No, I'm being honest now, because that's something that you can't actually see subjectively. And people say, you walk with confidence. You are this person who is, an extrovert. But actually, internally, there's a lot of things that are happening inside. So the narrative that Palesa has of me is very different from the one that I have of myself, Professor Amanda. And it can happen where people see someone who's pretty, they glorify probably their looks, and at times that person feels completely different to what society is actually using it as a leverage of a power dynamic, right?
Exactly. And I very often think if we look, at those people who are defined as pretty, because so much attention is poured on them from a young age, they do not develop interesting personalities. So very often a person's personality is far more attractive than the outward appearance. But that's very difficult to make young people understand that. And I just want to mention there was a study done on sex workers in Johannesburg, and the book is called Policing Bodies. But what this researcher found was that you have sex workers working on the street and some that work inside. And those inside are normally the beautiful ones. And the police were far more protecting of the beautiful ones than they were of the ones who were not considered beautiful. So again, we see how that sort of power is exercised in relation to beauty. And I think that's a very dangerous thing.
Yeah. Well, let's speak about this power that we speak of, because not all this pretty privileged power, jumps out at us. We don't see it immediately. I mean, from the time a child is born and maybe the child who seems to appear to be more beautiful is played with a little bit more, and that might build a little bit more self-confidence in that particular child versus a child who was born on the same day who doesn't have that particular privilege. That can also make you move quite different in society. So pretty privilege does not just mean that you are wielding a power or you see a power being wielded by those around you because you're pretty, but it is something that is innate and sometimes quite subtle in our societies, isn't it?
It is subtle in the exclusions. And I think most often it's not done by parents, right? I mean, the minute that child is born, it is beautiful to you. But it's done by very often peers in the society. So the peer group can be quite exclusionary and quite harmful because it is kids are cruel. And I think that, this is the thing about social media is that what trends on social media has very often got to do with who is popular, who is pretty, who wears the latest fashion, and so on, and not the important values that we want people to have. That's got nothing to do with outward appearance. So, I think what happens in schools also need to be looked at, and that there's an obligation on teachers to talk about issues of body appearance. What is it that we do when we make friends, right? Is it only about appearance? Is it about something else? Because that cruelty is really, we know about, the suicide rate because of social media, and it's increasing. So social media contributes to this notion that, who is pretty, who's not pretty, who do you befriend and who don't you befriend?
Well, Professor, we need to take a break, but, keeping in mind that beauty standards also change and evolve over time, what you mentioned in the beginning, there's this universal, beauty standard that's been imposed on the world for a very long time, but that's also changing now. People who are darker are starting to be seen as more, beautiful, African, plus size. Beauty standards are changing, but one thing that isn't changing is the fact that society does adhere to these beauty beauty standards and still imposes privileges or the lack thereof because of people's appearance. So stay on the line. We really want to unpack this term pretty privilege a little bit deeper with you after this break.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu masuala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Palesa and Benjamin, fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
Hey, you are listening to us right here on DSTV Channel 802, OpenView 6 to 8, and on www.channelafrica.co.za. We're speaking about pretty privilege in our second hour of the show today, and we are hanging out with our guest, who is Professor Amanda Gous, Professor of Political Science and Chair of the South African Research Initiative in Gender Politics at the Stellenbosch University, and she's helping us understand this pretty privilege idea. I'm still trying to understand it completely, but to a large degree, I think you've broken it down in ways that I am kind of wrapping my head around it. Let's speak about who actually exercises the privilege, because any privilege needs to be exercised here. Is it those around that particular person who is pretty, or is it the pretty person themselves, or can it happen in both ways?
Well, I think let's just go back to the question that was posed before the break. So you know, the ideals of pretty changes over time. If we look at the paintings of Rubens, who was an artist, and he painted a couple of centuries ago.
Yeah.
The woman he painted was round and voluptuous. So that was the norm then. Then, you know, over time, and especially in the 20th century, there was this idea of anorexic chic, right? That the models were so thin, they were absolutely scary.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, was the idea then. But the ones who exercise the privilege, it's not that they exercise the privilege, it's that they can actually engage the privilege, right? They get the privilege for being pretty and for not much else. And I think, you know, how that sort of, if we take the idea of the slave queen, which is this idea of young pretty women attracting a sugar daddy, and you know, I think that's a hugely problematic practice. But the slave queens are the ones who actually try to emulate this idea of pretty, so that they can access a sugar daddy, a blesser, right? So, and if we look at them, it's, you know, it is very often, again, conforming to the Western norm of, a slim but voluptuous body, tight-fitting clothes, straight hair, because that is the beauty ideal that is being held as what we all need to aspire to.
Yeah. And can those around you also utilize your pretty privilege as someone who is pretty? Because I've noticed that pretty people usually have other pretty people around them, and almost that circle of prettiness becomes like a sense of belonging, but not only a sense of belonging, but also a way of accessing certain rooms.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and this is the thing about, you know, pretty people attract each other, but we need to ask the question: what else can they give to society, right? What apart from the prettiness, is their contribution to society, and very often we see that it's quite shallow and empty. So if we keep on focusing on appearance, we lose sight of other issues that are important. Your kindness, your empathy towards others, your taking into consideration others' feelings and a care ethic, right? All those things also go together. And that's why I say very often people who are not pretty are the ones who have interesting personalities, and they are very often kind because they know what it feels like not to be included in the circle of pretty.
You know, Professor, I think I also have a slight problem with, I guess, also a stigma around those who being pretty and dumb, like the dumb blonde, for example. Those stereotypes also exacerbate, those in society who have been considered to be pretty, but they want to make an impact for themselves and in society. And usually those individuals who are considered to be pretty find it hard to navigate society and navigate spaces when they want to be heard things other than how they look, because the exacerbation of that pretty but dumb stereotypes continue, then it makes them harder to navigate society in the way that is meaningful to them.
Exactly, and I think we've seen this, that the two things are not exclusionary, right? You can be pretty and you can be smart.
Yes.
And it's very often, as you point out, difficult for women to navigate those because of the stereotype and the dumb blonde jokes and I mean there are other jokes about other racial groups. But the point is that it is a stereotype that's, I think, not been addressed in society. And we've seen, for example, many Miss South Africas. They are people who are well qualified. And they want to make a contribution to society. So those two things are not, like I said, not necessarily exclusive. But the point is that we need to change also the perceptions of how we see pretty women.
Can you defy or just go against the grain of this pretty privilege construction as a pretty person? Can you say, no, I do not want to be boxed in that way?
Yes, I think so, and I think women are doing it, and we see them sort of referring to issues that are important to them that's got nothing to do with beauty. So in many ways, they are role models, I think, to younger women. But I also think there is another issue that's also a stereotype, is that those women, they do not want to get married, or they want to pursue careers, and they are not interested in relationships with men. And very often they are then punished for not being interested in relationships with men.
Well, we have to leave it there, Professor. Thank you so much for giving us your time. This has been very informative and very helpful. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
That's Professor Amanda Hoos, Professor of Political Science and Chair of the South African Research Initiative in Gender Politics at the Stellenbosch University. What's your take? Pretty privilege? Have you seen it? Have you experienced? Maybe you are the pretty one. Do you use it for your own, advantage? +2763 469 That's where you can text us or voice notes. So interact with us on our different platforms at Channel Africa 1 being the Manchic handle. It's 10:30 Central African time. It's sports time.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
In our sports update, we begin with NOC, that's Olympic news in Kenya. Shedrack Maluki has been elected the new president of the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, NOC, following a hotly contested election held in Nairobi yesterday. Maluki, the current president of the Kenya Judo Federation and outgoing NOC vice president, garnered 15 votes to beat Tennis Kenya President Francis Mutuku, who secured 12 votes. The long-awaited elections, which had been postponed twice due to disputes and court rulings, were finally held during the annual general meeting, convened solely for the elections of officials. Maluki says this victory is a reflection of the confidence federations have in his leadership. And in football news, Confederation of African Football CAF Secretary General Veron Musengo Omba expects a record attendance at the next month's African Nations Championship CHAN in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. The competition is set for kickoff on the 2nd of August at the Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam, where Tanzania face Burkina Faso. Musengo Omba says anticipation in the rest of the continent's fever pitch at the moment as the countdown to the competition continues. The Secretary General further praised 3 countries for the exemplary preparation for the tourney, noting that it is a learning experience for co-hosts of future competitions. The national football team, Harambee Stars, step on the Kasarani turf on the 3rd of August to face the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in cricket news, the Proteas batter Corbin Bosch has reiterated the team's aim for more ruthlessness in their approach to the final match of the T20 Tri-Series against New Zealand. Although they faced the Black Caps for the second time, having lost the same team last week, they collected 2 wins against the host Zimbabwe at the Harare Sports Club. Bosch believes they were just not tight enough in their performance at that certain stages last week, which ultimately cost them the game by 21 runs. He says it is something they pride themselves on, to be ruthless at all stages of the game. He says they took the foot off the pedal, especially in the field towards the back end of the game, and gave away some easy runs along with a costly drop chance that may have swung the game even more in their favor. But they've addressed that, and he believes in their last game they were pretty ruthless with the ball, and they will need to do more for the same in this game today. Let's talk about Rwanda's cricket now, where Rwanda women's national cricket team kicked off their campaign at the 2025 ICC Women's T20 World Cup Africa Qualifier Division 2 with a dominant 10-wicket victory over Lesotho at Botswana Cricket Association Oval. In what turned out to be a one-sided affair, Lesotho won the toss and chose to bat first, but struggled against Rwanda's sharp bowling attack. They were bowled out for just 23 runs in 10.1 overs, with none of their batters reaching double figures. Kananelo Mulapo, 4 runs of 10 balls, and Babalo Peku, 4 runs of 14 balls, were Lesotho's top scorers, highlighting the team's batting struggles. Rwanda made light work of the chase, reaching the target in just 3.1 overs without losing a wicket. Player of the match, Marie Diani Bimenyimana, led the charge with an unbeaten 15 runs of 12 balls, while her opening partner, Mavale Uwase, contributed 8 runs of 7 balls, including a boundary. Following the emphatic win, Rwanda now tops Group A with 2 points. In the other group fixture, Malawi defeated Cameroon by 38 runs, having posted 111 for 5 and restricting Cameroon to 73 runs. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. This Mandela Month, we honor his belief that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world.
Education is one of the most important weapons in a country.
Catch us on DSTV Bouquet 802. 9 to 12 midday, Central African Time. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Hey, it's 35 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African Time. Let's move on now to our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, I'm Nusipo Zuma in your business news. This hour, the United Nations, UN, has thrown its full support behind South Africa's G20 presidency, emphasizing the urgent need for business unusual to accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Speaking to Channel Africa on the margins of the Startup 20 Small and Micro Medium Enterprises Conference underway in the city of Johannesburg, UN South Africa Country Coordinator Nelson Mafu says entrepreneurship, innovation and inclusive economic growth must be central to global efforts, particularly as the world falls behind on critical development targets.
For the UN, startups, entrepreneurship, innovation are at the heart of efforts to accelerate progress towards sustainable development. The Secretary General himself has said we are not on track and with regards to achievement of sustainable development goals. And so we need to look at doing business unusual. And that means working with small, medium-sized enterprises to scale up efforts at job creation, wealth creation, sharing prosperity, and this conference gives an opportunity to reflect and provide inputs into the G20 process itself and also the reflections at the global level around all of these matters.
South Africa's Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Thandi Moroka, says that the country will use the G20 platform to advocate for the inclusive global economic order in collaboration with AU institutions. In her welcoming remarks at the opening ceremony of the 5th ordinary sitting of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand, Moroka said the hosting of the G20 for 2025 is an opportunity that positions the country as a critical player in global economic governance. The minister said the G20 will also prioritize issues such as sustainable development, climate change, global trade, and the debt crisis. South Africa will host the 20th Heads of State and Government Summit of the Group of 20 in November. Minister Moroka explains.
We are going to utilize our presidency of the G20 to call for the reforms of the multilateral funding institutions in terms of these issues of debt management. And we are going to do that, of course, supported by the AU, because it is only in this year's G20 that we have admitted the AU as a permanent member of the G20, which is a platform that will provide all of us a space to ensure an alignment in terms of issues of priority that we need to drive together as the people of the continent of Africa.
Agriculture experts have urged the South African government to fund small-scale farmers in rural areas for the building of proper structural kraals to prevent the movement of animals and slow the spread of foot and mouth disease. The country currently has more than 200 cases of the foot and mouth disease, with the KwaZulu-Natal province being the worst affected. Agriculture expert Wandile Sihlobo says the sector plays a critical role in growing the economy, as it is the most inclusive sector. Sihlobo says the root cause of the repeated foot and mouth disease outbreaks needs to be urgently looked into.
For small and medium-scale farmers that usually sell their cattle in auctions, selling to certain feedlots, now with the limited movement of animals, as well as just the risk of a disease spread that makes everyone to be extra vigilant, that means then that those markets dry up. And that causes all of these difficulties, which is why I think perhaps as a country, we may have to reach a point where we ask ourselves, is it the time for South Africa to start applying a widespread national vaccination approach when it comes to foot and mouth disease?
Zimbabwe's exports of spodumene, a concentrate, a lithium-bearing mineral essential for battery production, has surged 30% in the first half of 2025, despite weaker global lithium prices. According to statistics from the Minerals Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe, the country exported 586,197 metric tons of spodumene concentrate between January and June, compared to 451,824 metric tons during the same period last year. Prices of lithium used in batteries to power renewable energy technologies have tumbled nearly 90% over the past 2 years, mainly due to renewable technologies. Swiss chocolate maker Lindt and Sprungli have raised organic sales growth forecast, citing customer loyalty despite the steep prices hikes, with a growing taste for more premium products, especially in Europe. Shoppers continue to bear the brunt of high cocoa prices as Lindt raised prices of its products by another 15.8% in the first half of 2025. Now, the maker of Lindo chocolate balls says it expects organic sales growth of between 9% to 11% for the full year, after previously guiding for 7% to 9%. It posted sales of $2.95 billion for the January-June period, up 11.2% organically. Your financial indicators: $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,530 naira, and Botswana is 13 pula 30. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 71, and in Zambia it's 23 kwacha 08. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 579. Russia is at 78 rubles 44. India is 86 rupees 14. China at 7 yuan 17, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 68. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,390 and platinum at $1,447 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $64 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nusipho Zuma.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Young couples or young people that are getting married, we often hear of divorces, that they're getting divorced, and it's quite worrying because when we attend these weddings, we want to see these people flourish and celebrate 30-year anniversaries. What do you think is the main challenge that is facing newlyweds?
We say that tell me how you were raised and I'll tell you how you love. So when we see people getting married, that's not where the relationship actually starts. The relationship starts with how you were raised, what you were familiar with, because we are attracted to what we are familiar with. If you don't have a background where love was prominent, where love was authentic, it's going to be...
Step into the heart of the day on the move with Palesa and Benjamin.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
No time to waste. Be on the move with Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa.
Open the fire, play the bed, do let them know. No finish you, no finish you. Man, no fit tire every day.
And the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu. Getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10, we take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones, on air, online. This is Channel Africa.
Hey guys, so it's about 30 minutes before we have to go onto the show and go live, and we're just having our own little briefing session with the team. We've got our producer in the background, Unsako. We've got my amazing co-host, Mateko Mosito.
Also, I'm not amazing.
We've got Unsako that side. And we just, just getting our ducks in a row for the show. Once we go live, there's no turning back. Make mistakes, we make them on air, but we try our best to prepare and ensure that we don't do that when we go on. And when we do, and we laugh about it, guys, we're only human. But this is how it looks like when we're just getting ready for the show. Enjoy. Here we go. Mix. Let's go. Come on. Let the creative juices flow.
The tree, what's at the bottom of it?
The root.
Thank you. If I'm not excited, like I'm just sitting around, I have nothing to do.
Bored.
Thank you. If it's not missed, it's
Vintage Africa. It's that time for us to look back to where we're going. We're speaking about staying pretty. We're speaking about privilege here when it comes to prettiness. But prettiness is work. You have to actually look a certain way. Like myself. Today I was called pretty. Which is a lot of nonsense.
Oh, Benji, it is not a load of nonsense. You are a good-looking gent. And you know what? Whether you like to deny it or not, it is the truth. It is the truth. So you're going to have to start maybe looking deeper into thinking, hey, have I actually experienced pretty privilege? Because your first, reaction was to deny. But I want you to go back and actually think about maybe intricate ways in society where it could have been possible for you to, have experienced pretty privilege. I say so myself. I wouldn't say there are overt ways that I have experienced pretty privilege, but I am not blind to the fact that I think I'm an attractive woman. A lot of people say I am, and I'm happy to be an attractive woman. So if people say there are ways I've experienced pretty privilege, I can take that because they might not have been overt. I might not have been pushed in spaces or moved forward, but I can say that because pretty privilege exists, then there probably are ways that I have experienced it. And we have to think about privileges sometimes, especially if you don't understand them or you can't associate yourself with certain privileges. You have to look at it from a very bigger view. So for example, if you look at racism, right, it exists all around the world. And a white person can say, I have not ever experienced the privilege of being white in certain spaces. But you look at them and say, yeah, whether you like it or not, there were privileges associated to that. There are privileges in gender, men versus women. Men have experienced certain privileges. And even though you don't overtly or people don't come to you say, I'm giving you this privilege because you are a man, you know, simply because you exist as a man in society, you will have had certain privileges. And pretty privilege works in the same way.
It's very layered because I think with pretty privilege, it's something that you would have to own up to actually leverage off it. I agree to a certain degree with what you're saying that other privileges like racial privileges, like gender privileges are ones that you could indirectly benefit from. But I don't know about pretty privilege if you can have the same comparison. I think we might be conflating that one to a large degree because I think to a certain degree, if you utilize pretty privilege in the same vein as gender privilege, that would mean that it is a bias of sorts.
It is a bias. Pretty privilege is a bias.
Yeah. That's also self navigated, right? Because I think as why I think there are distinctions here is that I don't have the same knowledge that you have around pretty privilege. So I haven't navigated around the politics of it, and I'm not aware of my own prettiness. So I know for a fact, as a black man, that as a black man, I've got a lot of privileges living in a black country, but I also know that in my blackness, I also don't have certain privileges because of my race. But I think with pretty privilege, it's much more nuanced than that.
Everything, all privileges are nuanced, and I
Let's
agree
take a
with
break,
you with
buddy.
that. We'll come back after that.
All
But
right,
you let us know what your thoughts are at Channel Africa 1. It's not particularly a debate, but it's something that exists in our societies. +27 63 406 9126. Let's hear your thoughts.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In recent weeks, East Africa has seen a disturbing rise in human rights violations. In Kenya, digital activist Rose Njeri was arrested under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act after creating a tool for citizens to oppose the Finance Bill 2025. Meanwhile, in Tanzania, Kenyan activist Boniface Mwangi and Ugandan lawyer Agatha Atuhaire reported being detained, tortured, and sexually assaulted by security officers.
East Africa needs a reset. We need to get back East Africa to where the founding fathers are. You know, when President Nyerere and his colleagues, Jomo Kenyatta and the Ugandan counterparts fought for independence. They fought for independence to get Africans out of poverty, to get Africans out of slavery. The leaders who took up power have since gotten into regression.
Neto Agostino, co-leader of the United Green Movement Party.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine.
We are up, we are ready, we are on the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama
on Channel Africa.
Olalaje mi ashake. Nakasumbala jano de waste time ona. Me I will fire bazooka ona. Mr. Money no de waste time.
One voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers,
Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens.
That is a collaboration between Asake and Burna Boy titled Sukba Remix. It takes us to 10:55 Central African time, and it's time for us to do our Vintage Africa. And today we're going to be looking at beauty as a whole. What keeps us beautiful as Africans and uniquely beautiful as Africans? What are the things that we use on our bodies that are very different from the Western perspective? And I've picked up two things that stood up for me that are very, very African and have a huge history. And I'm going to start with one called the Sapo body sponge.
Okay. I've heard about that. Do they also call it the African sponge?
No, they don't use it. They don't call it the African sponge, but you've used it in many variations, right?
Okay.
I remember the first time I experienced a Sapo sponge was, the orange bags?
The orange sack.
The orange sack, yeah. My grandmother used to hit me hard with that one. It was not a joke.
So essentially, in a lot of South African households, if you buy a sack of oranges, it comes in this sort of red sack material.
Yeah, it's a red sack material.
Right? And when you're done with the oranges, you take that and you put it in the bathroom.
And what she used to do, which was very, very cool, right, is that she would put different soaps that are already used and that should be thrown away. And she would put them in this orange, and she would really lock it up. And every time she would brush it against your skin, all these different soaps all over you. And it was very yummy and very cool, but it was at times very, very sore.
Yeah, depending on the pressure.
Yeah, depending on the pressure. But Granny had a lot of pressure. Another thing that Granny used, I don't know if other people use these, but I know people use them a lot. She used to go in the street looking for a particular rock.
Yes.
And she would find this rock. And when she finds this rock, it's not usually the smoothest rock. No. It has to have a little bit of edges, it has to have that kind of element. And then Granny would come back and she would scrub you on
under your feet,
your knees, your elbows, all the dark parts of your body.
Yeah.
She would scrub that on you, right? Yeah. And that was usually a painful experience, but it was yummy because most of the time when Granny holds your body, it's usually like an experience you have once in a while. So for me, that was therapeutic. But one thing that she used to love using that I also use now and then is African black soap. Many people, that's come back and it's very trendy, and I know that it is one thing that many people enjoy. And actually it has its origins from the Yoruba people, and those are the main architects of African black soap. I know many people now utilize it in a way, but it's like very trendy and looking very cool, but it's really an exfoliating soap. It has so many different functions, got a cleansing property, but it's also got a perfume element to it.
And moisturizing.
Very moisturizing indeed. And it's a blend of plantain skins, cocoa pods, and shea butter and palm oil, and it's super yummy. I know as a guy, I really always kind of find different variations of black soap, but it's one of my favorite soaps ever.
Well, then I guess we must thank your granny for giving you the pretty privilege and cleaning you nice and scone so that you can come and look so pretty for us every day, Beji.
Well, let's look at how it actually helps. It actually leathers you. It's got great acne properties that help you with acne as well, and breaks out. So it's fantastic for that kind of stuff. But also with dark spots, black soap is fantastic for you. So we've got all these wonderful things that it does for us. So that's our Vintage Africa. I didn't go completely into a history. So if you want to check out the history of it, go to your Google and Google what African soap does for you, black soap especially. Well, let's move on. It's how we wrap up our Vintage Africa for today. It's 1100 hours Central African time. Let's find out what's the latest in the news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories this hour. Court dismisses application for clarification of facts on Timothy Omodoso judgment and documents linked to the assassination of Martin Luther King released. Good morning, I am Noluthando Buthelezi. The Gqeberha High Court in South Africa's Eastern Cape province has dismissed the state application for clarification of facts on the judgment handed by Judge Imar Schumann acquitting televangelist Timothy Omodoso and his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zukiswa Seto. Delivering judgment, Judge Nyameko Qamana said that the state is not entitled to clarification on the judgment. Omodoso and his co-accused were facing a string of charges which included racketeering, human trafficking and rape, but were acquitted on all the charges. South Africa's joint portfolio committees on police and justice and constitutional development have adopted their report that sets out how the institution must look into issues of national security. This after the Speaker of the National Assembly, Thoko Didiza, instructed these two portfolio committees as well as the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence to consider on an urgent basis allegations by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of political interference in the police service at the highest level. Last week, the committees decided that it would recommend the National Assembly that an ad hoc committee is the best vehicle to look into these matters. They were given the deadline of tomorrow to report back to the NA. The South African Students' Congress has welcomed the appointment of Buti Manamela as Higher Education Minister. The appointment of Manamela and Dr. Nomusa Dube-Ncube as his deputy follows the axing of Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane last night. Nkabane's axing follows months of controversy over the Sector Education and Training Authorities Board appointments that saw several African National Congress-aligned individuals appointed. SASCO National Executive Committee member Bongeka Dlamini says that they have high hopes in Manamela as he has been the deputy minister in the portfolio for a long time. Then this is the former leader of SASCO.
From him, we expect immediate rectification of NSFAS board, restarting research process and appoint immediately. Payment of allowances as restarting the research, excluding financial accommodation and academic, specifically of the first year due to outstanding allowances. Also, public process of the amendment of Higher Education Act, right of the student debt, because students are facing exclusions due to debt by NSFAS. The students are not supposed to pay for themselves, but the NSFAS is there to pay for them.
The Innovation and Action for Immunization and Child Survival Forum 2025 has officially started in Maputo, Mozambique. This high-level event, taking place from the 22nd to the 24th of July, brings together global leaders, policymakers, researchers and advocates with a shared goal to accelerate access to life-saving vaccines and an end to preventable child deaths across sub-Saharan Africa. The forum is hosted by the governments of Mozambique and Sierra Leone in partnership with Spain, UNICEF, the Gates Foundation and others. It aims to turn bold ideas into tangible action. The Trump administration has released hundreds of thousands of pages of documents linked to the assassination of the civil rights leader Martin Luther King in 1968. The release comes as U.S. President Donald Trump faces calls for more information related to the deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to be made public. The BBC's David Willis reports.
Amongst the documents are thought to be leads the FBI received following Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination and details of wiretaps the agency placed on his phones following concerns about his suspected ties to communism during the Cold War. The release of these latest documents has prompted Dr. King's 2 surviving children to voice concern that they could be used to attack their father's legacy.
To recap the top story now, the Gqeberha High Court in South Africa's Eastern Cape Province has dismissed the state application for clarification of facts on the judgment handed by Judge Emma Schumann, acquitting Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omodoso and his co-accused Lusanda Sulani and Zukiswa Sito. For any news stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Nolutando Butelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
All right, 6 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. You are listening to On the Move. DSTV channel 802, OpenView 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za. July is Savings Month, and I know. That's what we were thinking yesterday when we were thinking about talking about this to you and having a conversation where we can be more progressive about it. And we were like, we don't want to do the typical conversation of like, how do you save? When do you save? Not enough people are saving. We're like, you know what? Let's be proactive and speak about something that can actually make us save a little bit easier. What makes saving difficult is that sometimes you need to be really proactive around it, right? And sometimes you don't have to be. And you're like, no, what are you saying, Ben? No, we're going to help you not to be proactive about saving. You're like, but Ben, that actually defeats the point. Then why are you doing a saving conversation? Well, there are apps and there are things that you can actually get into your banking system that just take money and you don't feel it. Like maybe they'll take like 100 Rand there, $1 here, and you just won't feel it. But actually, when this money compounds over time, it actually makes a huge difference. And that's what we're going to be talking about, how technology can actually manage your funds for you, and not to a large degree. Yesterday, we were talking about this, and Palesa was like, I've got this thing called Stash, and I just stash money. And it's like small amounts of money that I would not even feel that particular month, right? Because it's just such a small amount. But when I go back to that app and I look at how much I've saved in a year, it makes a huge difference.
So, Benj, I'm going to show you. This is my Stash app, right?
Yeah.
This is my personal one. And it's got such great little features because they say Stash means, put aside money. And the money could start from as little as 10 cents, right?
Yeah.
And they say stash when sunny, stash when I sweat, loyalty bonus, and stash with 10-cent challenge. So essentially, if I click on stash when sunny, right, because technology and the phone work together, every time it's a sunny day and my phone recognizes a sunny day, it's going to take a little bit of money from my account.
Okay, how much?
And it's going to, it depends how much I choose, right? So here I chose stash when sunny, and it says if you'll stash 5 Rand every day, it's sunny in your area.
Wow.
So all I do now is choose my location. So I'll choose Johannesburg. Johannesburg,
Yeah.
and every time the weather is sunny in Johannesburg, it will take 5 rand from my account
And you don't
put it in
feel
my
it
stash.
at all, right?
I won't feel it at all.
And also, if it doesn't find money in your account, there's nothing wrong that happens.
There's nothing that will, so there are no
Yeah.
fees that
Fees,
will
okay.
charge me for
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
But also, I won't get that 5 rand notification. So I won't even know that money is coming out,
Okay.
which is good because usually it's that consciousness of money coming out that makes us afraid to save.
All right, so we're going to get really proactive about saving today, finding out how technology can help us save a little bit better, and not in a way that actually makes us feel the heaviness of the responsibility of saving. We'll speak to a guest who's going to help us on this one. That's John Archery, who is a financial wellness coach and director at Money Messages. Looking forward to that one. It's coming up after this.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Palesa and Benjamin fuel your day with fresh African perspective on Channel Africa.
10 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. You're listening to On the Move with myself, Benjamin Moshatama, and Palesa. Well, let's look at today's Money Matters feature. July is Savings Month, so there's so much awareness that's happening. And what we do most of the time, we'll talk about how to save, what not to do, when you have so much expenses and pay off your debts. And we're like, you know what? Yeah, those conversations are important and they've been done over and over and over again. But sometimes you need to get practical when it comes to this one. And the practicality of saving is happening a lot on our apps. Our apps are helping us to save. I'll tell you why. Because Palesa was telling me just yesterday that there's an app that she has. And that app just randomly takes like small amounts of money from her app. And she just said that like when it's sunny or it's raining, it takes a certain amount of money, but she doesn't feel it. You know, she doesn't feel that energy. When she's exercising, it takes maybe 2 rands. When she's happy, maybe her heartbeat rate is up, maybe it takes like 50 rands. It just depends, but she doesn't necessarily feel it. So apps are becoming a very technological way to help us manage our saving. And to speak a little bit more about this, to find out some useful technological tricks of the trade of saving, we've got Jean Archery, who's a financial wellness coach and director at Money Messages. Jean, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to all the listeners.
Yeah, we don't want to go on a typical, you should do this, and, you know, that guilt trip of not saving is not what we're going to do today, but we're going to look at what's out there that can actually help us save a little bit easier. Technology is fantastic, isn't it?
100%. And I think, you know, it's also scary and overwhelming, especially for older generation who's not familiar with technology. I feel that I myself is technologically challenged when it comes to a lot of things. And, you know, I think keeping up with the younger generation, I mean, just the other day, my daughter showed me how to fast forward a video on TikTok.
Great.
You know, so getting little tips and tricks from the younger generation also helps and goes a long way.
And I think these apps are helping us so we don't also feel the guilt of actually our lives, because money has that guilt attached to it, right? Because if you're putting money away and you're aware of it, this happens to me sometimes. I'm like, I still have that stash there. And I want this, and I've got this thing happening. Let me just do it now and take that stash back and just do this thing and get it over and done with. And at times, technology helps us not to actually have that burden of dealing with us physically putting that money away, because we usually have an attachment to putting that money away.
Yeah. You know, I think there's so many things that we can talk about here today. And I think, you know, one of the things is our mindset around money and just going back to the actual basics of how we manage that money. And the challenge, I think, is for a lot of us is that, first of all, financial education was never taught to us in schools in a formal environment. especially as the older generation. You know, a lot of our beliefs around money were passed on by our parents, and sometimes that may not have necessarily been the right beliefs. And so our brains have been programmed to think a certain way about money and to behave in a certain way about money. You know, and if you go back to the way the new generation is being raised, I mean, if we start teaching them to pay themselves first and get into the habit of paying themselves first, the challenges that we as the older generation are experiencing when it comes to those guilts or the guilty feelings that we have attached to spending and even saving will be reduced a lot.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at these tools that can help us deal with that money management. What are the most effective financial tools or apps that you could recommend for us, especially for the budgeting and tracking expenses for us?
So a lot of a lot of banks at the moment offer some sort of budgeting, goal saving capabilities so that you can actually manage and track your expenses. And they've also partnered with other financial institutions or companies that have these apps that are integrated into their systems, which then are able to help you give you that functionality. So I mean, I think the first thing, and I know I've been cautious of mentioning names on radio stations previously, so I'm not sure if I am
go
able
ahead.
to do so.
No, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Okay. So 22/7 is quite a popular one that is linked to well, I know to a few banks. And so, you know, again, I think they from a concern perspective, or you know, if people are cautious, the first point of call is obviously to have a look at what their banks are offering and if they have that functionality available to them.
What's 22/7? You highlighted that. Yeah.
22/7 is an app that you can register or link to your bank account, and it pulls in your policy information, it pulls in your SARS details, and you know it gives you a dashboard basically of where you can go and have a look at what you track your income and your expenses, your investments, your policy information, etc.
I like that, and maybe today is a good one that we're mentioning app names because they give us great examples. Palesa was speaking about something called Stash earlier on, where you actually just give this particular app instructions of how much money to actually take every month. And what it does is that if today it's very, very sunny or it's very warm, it will take like 20 cents or 50 cents or 50 Rand from your account, and you don't feel it because you don't announce it and it's a small amount, but over time that also builds up. Do you have any other interesting examples?
Of one like that, no, but I know some bank accounts again as well offer that functionality where you can, it's almost like a savings pocket. So you can basically store your extra savings or cents and again, because they're small amounts, you don't really feel it. But you know, over time it does build up, it compounds, and then you are able to, you know, notice a significant change without actually feeling it on a month-to-month or daily basis.
I think sometimes we also underrate the function of our bank apps, you know, because they have so multifunctional, but I think we always stay on the account and the expenses, and we don't really explore the other avenues of an app. A bank app is such a vital platform as well, don't you think?
100%. And you know, if I can just add, I think because we live in such a complex world where we have so many different loads of information and data available to us, that, you know, to actually just take the time to sit and go and have a look at your bank account and look at what the functionality and the capabilities that are available on that bank account offers you as a consumer. It's only when you sit and you actually look at it and think about it. I mean, people don't only bank with one bank; they bank with a few banks. So again, you know, to understand all the services that's available through your bank, it becomes quite overwhelming and challenging. There's also insurance companies and providers that also have similar functionality that try and help us to manage and simplify our lives a lot better when it comes to managing and transacting with money. So again, it's on the consumer to actually take the time and make the effort of going and understanding what functionality is available on their apps and with their service providers.
We're going to go for a break. Stay there, Gina, on the line. We'll continue speaking about technology and how it can actually help us save much better. Jean Archery is a financial wellness coach and also director at Money Messages. We'll chat a little bit more with her after the break.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Estamos kwa ndi Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. Enjoy the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
It's our Money Matters feature, and July is Savings Month. And usually when we speak about savings, people are like, yeah, well, saving is for people who actually have enough money to save, because consciously saving can be quite difficult. You look at your budget, you look at all the money that you have, and you're like, how much of this money can I actually put away? And it's the physical element of actually taking money away and putting it somewhere else that can make it so hard to save. But today we're finding out about useful technological tricks of the trade that simplify our lives and actually using technology to try and save no matter how little. We're still having this conversation with Jean Archery, financial wellness coach and director at Money Messages. Let's chat a little bit about that. Why is it so hard to physically remove money from yourself and put it elsewhere versus if there's something that is an app of sorts that is removing the money for you? What is it about that interaction of actually seeing the money go away and actually it going away without you noticing it?
You know, Palesa, I mean, I think that's an interesting conversation that actually needs to be had. And again, you know, when you see your money in your bank account, you feel like there's a little bit of certainty, there's a little bit of control.
Yeah.
And I think the minute it's out of your sight, that's when you start to get a little bit concerned. You know, there's a lot of fraud out there. There's a lot of scammers. There's, you know, and again, if you're not used to using technology, if something is not within your physical sight, it does become a little bit more concerning. But again, on the other side of that is also not seeing that money makes you less tempted to actually spend it. And I think those are little habits and practices that we need to start getting used to in terms of how we actually view our money and how we view these money habits that we've grown to acquire over the years.
Yeah. But the thing is, apps are developed every day, especially these days in the age of AI. And, with the convenience of technology can also come the inconvenience of being scammed. So how do you identify the right platforms that can allow you to save without you feeling guilty, but also you know that your money is in a safe space?
100%. And again, I mean, I think there's so many different apps available out there that people have access to, that, you know, people are using, again, to fraudulently scam people out of money. So I think it's important that consumers actually do their research. Make sure that you're dealing with somebody that's reputable. I mean, if you are downloading apps, where are you downloading them from? Are they being powered by, registered businesses? Again, there's a lot of, even cell phone companies today are offering mobile money applications.
Yeah.
But they've powered with registered banks. And remember, formal businesses are, especially financial services businesses, are registered by legislation. So there are certain rules and regulations that they need to have in place to make sure that consumers are protected. Encryption, logging in, making sure your passwords are secured and strong enough. that your apps are locked on your phone. There are lots of encryption programs that you can use to make sure that even if your device were to get stolen, that your information is actually protected on your device.
Another big, conversation that needs to be had when it comes to saving is the short term versus the long term. So I was actually explaining to Benjamin and Selena, our producer, yesterday, that I used to use the Stash app for my son because I know that during the December holidays he becomes very expensive, right? He's got a lot of time on his hands. His friends want to go to the movies, let's go gaming, this and that could end up with me using so much money with every day with a new demand, and you're just taking money out so they don't get bored. So I'd use the Stash app and it would stash small amounts of money throughout the year, and every time in December I'll go to his Stash app and give him all the money that is in there that was saved from the year that can be his spending money for the December month. That's a short-term saving goal, and there are apps that you can't use for long-term savings goals. So for like investments, why is it important to use different apps for different saving goals?
Yeah. And again, it's to reduce that temptation that we have to actually dip into those savings and use the money for immediate goals. So, again, important to go back to the basics and understand and identify what your personal goals are, and then to have specific savings and investment products that are linked to those goals so that it actually makes it easier for you to manage. I know also, with a lot of banks, you can actually create different savings accounts and link them to different goals. So again, when you're taking out from a holiday fund as opposed to your son's personal spending money, you will think twice before you actually dip into those accounts, because you're making trade-offs. If you're taking away from your holiday fund, as an example, to give to your son or to buy something for yourself. So again, it's getting into that habit and mindset of how we look and view money, how we look and view goals, and make sure that whatever it is that we have in place is aligned. The strategies that we put in place are aligned to the goals that we've identified that are important to us.
Yeah.
That makes us question and think twice about whether we actually want to do this. And I mean, if we look at things like retirement savings in South Africa, retirement savings, the statistics has not shifted since I started working in this industry, which is probably now almost 30 years. And that is 6% of South Africans will only be able to retire financially comfortable. I mean, if you just look at that as an example, people are dipping into retirement savings to fund their daily expenses because they're struggling to survive. And so, but again, at the back of their minds, they know I'm taking away from my retirement. What's going to happen when I do eventually retire? And a lot of people are struggling with the fact of, or they use avoidance tactics. They procrastinate, they delay, they ignore, thinking that the problem is going to go away, but it doesn't. The problem is still there. We are still going to retire at some point. And more than likely, if you haven't, aligned an investment strategy to the goals that you want to achieve, then the chances of that goal becoming a reality is going to be very slim.
Well, every time we learn something new, we'll find an advisor who maybe gives us the ABCs. So really the basic ways of entering into that particular space and being consistent. What would you say the ABCs of using technology as a saving tool are?
So again, I think get very clear on what your goals are. And once you know what your goals are, you can then start looking at what solutions or strategies that you need to put in place in order to be able to achieve those goals. And, again, it also goes back to how we think and how we behave about money. So, having a goal, as an example, if we look at retirement, having a retirement goal, I know that I'm only going to retire in 20, 30 years from now. So I've still got time on my side. So if there is an emergency, I might end up dipping into, money that I may have saved up for that. But at the back of my mind, I need to get into the program of thinking, well, if I do take away from this, how am I going to replenish it? Or am I willing to make sacrifices later on in the line? Again, it's trade-offs that we need to be weighing up and discussions that we need to be having with ourselves and making sure that we've automated things and we've simplified things as much as we possibly can to make it easier for us to stay aligned to that vision.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Jean. I think we got a lot of great advice, and hopefully more and more people will start using these tools that are at our disposal. Many of them are free as well to actually start saving. But more than anything, that they're careful out there and they don't just say, hey, they said that we must use technology to save. Do your research and make sure you're not throwing your money away and not being scammed as well. We appreciate your time and your information this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
That's financial wellness coach and director at Money Messages, Jean Archery, helping us simplify saving this savings month of July on our Money Matters feature. It's 11:30 Central Africa time. Things are moving quite swiftly, and it's time once again for our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And in this hour, we begin with football news. The executive director of football's international anti-discrimination body, FAIR, Piara Power, has questioned England's decision to stop taking the knee before Euro 2025 matches after defender Jess Carter suffered racist abuse on social media. On Sunday, the Lionesses said they would stop the anti-racism gesture as it was clear they and football need to find another way to tackle racism. The Football Association is said to be fully supportive of the Lionesses' decision and shares the squad's view that something else is now needed. Power said it was time for regulator Ofcom to take action against social media platforms, but also expressed disappointment at England's stance. Shadrack Maluki has been elected the new president of the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, NOC, following a hotly contested election held in Nairobi yesterday. Maluki, the current president of the Kenya Judo Federation and outgoing NOC vice president, garnered 15 votes to beat Tennis Kenya President Francis Mutuku, who secured 12 votes. The long-awaited elections, which had been postponed twice due to disputes and court rulings, were finally held during the annual general meeting convened solely for the election of officials. Maluki says this victory is a reflection of the confidence federations have in his leadership. On to cricket news. Proteas batter Corbin Bosch has reiterated the team's aim for more ruthlessness in their approach to the final match of the T20 Tri-Series against New Zealand today. They face the Black Caps for the second time, having lost to the same team last week. Although they collected 2 wins against host Zimbabwe at the Harare Sports Club, Bosch believes they were just not tight enough in their performance at certain stage last week, which ultimately cost them the game by 21 runs.
I think it's something that we pride ourselves to try to be ruthless at all stages of the game, and I think we put our foot off the pedal a little bit in the game, especially in the field. I think we were a little bit lackadaisy towards the back end of that game and just let through some easy runs and maybe a costly drop chance that may have swung the game even more in our favour, where we could have been a bit more ruthless. But I think we have addressed it. I think in the last game, like bat and ball, we were pretty ruthless. So I think we must just do more of the same.
Bosch admitted that the World Test Championship last month has instilled a new sense of belief into the team, which will also give them an extra edge heading into today's game. He says the big win over Australia at Lord's showed that anyone is beatable in any format of the game.
I think there's that. I think it's that quiet belief amongst the players that we can get it done. As you said, the WTC showed that we are a world-class outfit. We can beat anyone in the world, and I think that's slowly starting to filter into all avenues of our cricket. And I think it's an exciting time for cricket in the country. And as I said, there's so much more talent that's left to be explored in our country itself. So it's an exciting time to be a part of SA cricket at the moment.
Let's end with tennis news. World number 2 Carlos Alcaraz, a 5-time Grand Slam singles champion, has withdrawn from next week's ATP Canadian Open in Toronto to recover from Wimbledon. The 22-year-old Spaniard lost to top-ranked Jannik Sinner in the Wimbledon final earlier this month in a bid for his 3rd consecutive crown in the Grass Court Classic. Alcaraz had his best Canada run in 2023, falling to American Tommy Paul in the quarterfinals. Tournament director Carl Hale says although he has been on the scene for a while, he's still at the beginning of his career and there will be plenty of opportunities for Canadians to see him again in the future. American Sebastian Korda, the world number 33rd, struggling with a leg injury, and Poland's 38th ranked Hubert Hurkacz, fighting a knee injury, have also withdrawn. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Keeping you on the know and on the move.
Thank you for that sports update, Fikile Ngwati. Let's keep things moving with our latest in business.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning, I'm Nosipho Zuma. In your business news this hour, the United Nations, the UN, has thrown its full support behind South Africa's G20 presidency, emphasizing the urgent need for business unusual to accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Speaking to Channel Africa on the margins of the Startup 20 Small and Micro Medium Enterprises Conference underway in the city of Johannesburg, UN's South Africa Country Coordinator Nelson Mafu says entrepreneurship, innovation and inclusive economic growth must be central to global efforts, particularly as the world falls behind on critical development targets.
For the UN, startups, entrepreneurship, innovation are at the heart of efforts to accelerate progress towards sustainable development. The Secretary General himself has said we are not on track and with regards to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we need to look at doing business unusual. And that means working with small, medium-sized enterprises to scale up efforts at job creation, wealth creation, sharing prosperity. And this conference gives an opportunity to reflect and provide inputs into the G20 process itself and also the reflections at the global level around all of these matters.
South Africa's Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Thandi Moroka, says that the country will use the G20 platform to advocate for an inclusive global economic order in collaboration with AU institutions. In her welcoming remarks at the opening ceremony of the 5th ordinary sitting of the 6th Parliament of the Pan-African Parliament in Midrand, Moroka said that the hosting of the G20 for 2025 is an opportunity that positions the country as a critical player in global economic governance. The minister said the G20 will also prioritize issues such as sustainable development, climate change, global trade, and debt crisis. South Africa will host the 20th Heads of State and Government Summit of the Group of 20 in November. Minister Moroka explains.
We are going to utilize our presidency of the G20 to call for the reforms of the multilateral funding institutions in terms of these issues of debt management. And we are going to do that, of course, supported by the AU, because it is only in this year's G20 that we have admitted the AU as a permanent member of the G20, which is a platform that will provide all of us a space to ensure an alignment in terms of issues of priority that we need to drive together as the people of the continent of Africa.
Agriculture experts have urged the South African government to fund small-scale farmers in rural areas for the building of proper structural kraals to prevent the movement of animals and slow the spread of foot and mouth disease. Now, the country currently has more than 200 cases of foot and mouth disease, with the KwaZulu-Natal province being the worst affected. Agriculture expert Wandile Sihlobo says the sector plays a critical role in growing the economy as it is the most inclusive sector. Sihlobo says the root cause of the repeated foot and mouth disease outbreaks needs to be urgently looked into.
For small and medium-scale farmers that usually sell their cattle in auctions, selling to certain feedlots, now with the limited movement of animals, as well as just the risk of a disease spread that makes everyone to be extra vigilant, that means then that those markets dry up. And that causes all of these difficulties, which is why I think perhaps as a country, we may have to reach a point where we ask ourselves, is it the time for South Africa to start applying a widespread national vaccination approach when it comes to foot and mouth disease?
Zimbabwe's exports of spodumene concentrate, a lithium-bearing mineral essential for battery production, has surged 30% in the first half of 2025, despite weak global lithium prices. According to statistics from the Minerals Marketing Corporation of Zimbabwe, the country exported 586,197 metric tons of spodumene concentrate between January and June, compared to 451,824 metric tons during the same period last year. Prices of lithium used in batteries to power renewable energy technologies have tumbled nearly 90% over the past 2 years, mainly due to oversupply by producers who remain positive about the metal's long-term prospects amid a global push towards cleaner energy sources and electric vehicles. And finally, Swiss chocolate maker Lindt and Sprengly have raised organic sales growth forecast, citing customer loyalty despite steep price hikes, with a growing taste for more premium products, especially in Europe. Shoppers continue to bear the brunt of high cocoa prices as Lindt raised prices of its products by another 15.8% in the first half of 2025. The maker of Lindo chocolate balls says it expects organic sales growth of between 9% and 11% for the full year, after previously guiding for 7% to 9%. It posted sales of $2.95 billion for the January-June period, up 11.2% organically. Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,530 naira. In Botswana, it's 13 pula 30. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 71, and in Zambia, it's 23 kwacha 08. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 579. Russia is 78 rubles 44. 86 rupees 14, China at 7 yuan 17, and South Africa $1 is trading at 17 rand 68. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,390 and platinum at $1,447 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $68.64 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Soma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África @ newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Channel Africa, a perspectiva africana.
Call us on +27 63 406 9126
I can see my whole world changing.
and contribute to the conversation.
SABC Sport brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Stream each chapter on SABC Plus, anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun, this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Keeping you on the know and on the move.
Mist. It's not mist in the morning. You can't see the road. It's like a cloud.
Bright and early in the morning.
Like in the
sometimes your brain experiences.
It rhymes with dog. Thank you. I don't know this one.
Which one is this one, guys? Hi, guys. Come on, huh?
What is this? When I'm doing this, thank you. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're so
funny.
Thank you.
Alright.
Nice and easy, clean. Don't forget what caught your eye at 22.
Yes.
And then, yeah, we're good.
Fantastic.
23, my love.
Oh, okay. Show me your name on it.
Rekenika intro ile. Yeah.
Go.
Coming to you all the way from the Auckland Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, this glorious Thursday afternoon. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are live on our social media platforms at Channel Africa on Facebook and YouTube. And of course, if you have DSTV, it's 802 OpenView Channel 628. Download the SABC Plus app so you can take us with you wherever you go. Good afternoon to you, Mateko. How are you doing this afternoon?
My dearest, I am happy that you got the memo that this show is wearing black today. Our social media specialist is wearing black.
Excellent.
Our madam producer is in black. You are in black. I'm in black. I love it for us.
All black.
All black.
We actually need to do a photo shoot.
And actually, a group photo.
Yeah.
Black everything. Hello there, my name is Matako Musito and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African Time.
Hey guys, Debukhole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African Time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Debukhole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here, so join us.
Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palesa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Debukhole Kuleni and Matseko Musito. Tamengo Bene talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Muteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m.
Kekelengo, and that one was titled Unali Gade. Hey, we're about to get out of here. It's been a nice show. Hey, it's been so many cool conversations. Where are you going to get this outside of here, Channel Africa? Eh?
This is the only place.
Yeah.
It's the only place.
Yeah, making sure that we become better Africans indeed. Yeah, remember at midday Central African Time, we'll have our latest news from our English desk. These are exciting, interesting times for Africa, and this is the time to make sure that we are in the know of what's happening in our beautiful continent. So they make sure that we are still updated on the different news events that are taking place in the different corners of Africa. Hey, let's go back to the music. This is one by DJ Neptune, Hang Out with Kaid, and this one is titled Gelato.
Greatness Republic. DJ Neptune, hit me.
Cinderella from Puerto Rico. You carry go be fine face.
Just on air, I of course work with the wonderful Debukhole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Matseko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African Time.
Hey guys, Debukhole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African Time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Debukhole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here. So join us. Hello there, my name is Matseko Musito, and I am contributing as co-host on a show called The Upside here on Channel Africa. We are in your company wherever you are in the African region between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Central African Time.
Hey guys, Tebohole Kuleni here from the Upside team on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Join us every single weekday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central African Time for the ultimate afternoon drive show.
Bringing you lifestyle, news and views and opinion, most importantly, because that matters always, hey? So catch us on air. I, of course, work with the wonderful Tebohole Kuleni, and we are very happy to be here, so join us.
Kapu joins us in studio. Hey Lulu, we've missed you. Welcome back.
Wow, it's good to be back. I always miss, we always miss this place when we're not here.
Yeah,
you know?
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. And how are you?
Good.
Right.
It's an interesting one today, I'm sure, on your show.
Very interesting. It's always interesting in Africa Update. We always give grim and fun stories, but in a not so depressive manner. So we try very hard to do that. All right, so today we're going to be looking at political parties and reaction to the higher education minister being dismissed, Nobuhle Nkabane, and they're calling for a step forward toward greater accountability. They still want her as a member of parliament to come and address the education committee in parliament, because she has to account for that whole
CETA thing.
Debacle, the CETA thing, and she was meant to go to Parliament, to the committee, to appear before the committee last week, and she opted to go to a protest. So there's a lot.
Dispute there.
Yeah, so there's a lot happening on that, but it's very good to see Buti Manamela is now the Minister of Higher Education. He's been in this ministry for a very long time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then also human rights abuses come under the spotlight in Kenya as the human rights activist Boniface Mwangi is released on bail. There's a lot happening in Kenya. We're going to be unpacking that as well.
Sure.
So do stay tuned for Africa Update today.
All right, that's from midday to 1 o'clock Central African Time. We have to get out of here. It's been a good one. We're going to leave you with the Wiz Kid with one titled Ojwalegba. Until next time, God bless.
Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9.
We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia, 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond.